The hardest part wasn't losing her husband. It was watching her 14-year-old daughter blame herself for daddy leaving and seeing her 16-year-old son choose sides in a war he never should have been part of. Sarah's story shows how divorce doesn't just end marriages, it reshapes entire families, and how one mother found the strength to protect her children while rebuilding herself. See, we think divorce is about two adults who couldn't make it work. But what I learned from Sarah's story is that divorce is about innocent children losing the family structure they've known their entire lives, and how one parent's decision to leave can force everyone else to rebuild their identity. Sarah didn't just lose a husband, she lost her financial security, her social circle, her daily routine, and her vision of the future. But watching her children struggle with the divorce taught her something about strength she never knew she had. Let me tell you about Sarah Mitchell from suburban Dallas. She's 46 years old, married to Tom for 20 years, mother to Emma, 14, and Jake, 16. For 2 decades, Sarah lived what looked like the perfect middle-class life. Sarah met Tom in college, married at 26, had Jake at 30, and Emma at 32. She left her marketing career to be a full-time mom, believing that was best for her family. Tom worked in corporate sales, provided well, and Sarah managed everything else: the house, the kids, the social calendar, the family life. I thought we were happy, Sarah tells me. We had our routines, our traditions, our plans. Tom traveled for work, but when he was home, we functioned like a team. I handled the day-to-day, he handled the finances. I never questioned it. Sarah describes a marriage that worked on the surface: family vacations, kids' sports events, neighborhood barbecues, church on Sundays. She and Tom didn't fight much, mainly because Sarah had learned to adapt, to keep peace, to make everything work smoothly. Looking back, Sarah says, I realized I had become invisible in my own marriage. I was so focused on being the perfect wife and mother that I stopped being Sarah. I was just Tom's wife, Jake, and Emma's mom. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. But Sarah thought that was normal. She thought that was marriage, sacrificing your individual identity for family harmony. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Tuesday evening in March. Tom came home from a business trip, waited until after dinner, and asked Sarah to sit down. Sarah, he said, I want a divorce. I've been thinking about this for months, and I can't do this anymore. I need something different. Sarah was stunned. No warning, no discussion about problems, no suggestion of counseling, just a decision that Tom had made alone about their shared life. I asked him if there was someone else, Sarah recalls. He said no, but that he felt like we were just roommates, that he wanted to feel passion again, that he was tired of our routine. Tom explained that he'd been unhappy for years, but never said anything because Sarah seemed content. He'd convinced himself that staying in an unfulfilling marriage was noble, but now he realized it was just cowardice. The irony, Sarah says, is that I had been content because I thought that's what marriage was: comfortable, stable, predictable. I didn't know he wanted passion because he never told me. We never talked about what we really wanted from each other. Within a week, Tom had moved out. Within a month, he'd filed divorce papers. Sarah's 20-year marriage ended faster than most people change jobs. The impact on Jake and Emma was devastating in ways Sarah hadn't anticipated. Emma, 14, immediately blamed herself. She kept asking me what she did wrong, why Daddy didn't want to live with us anymore, Sarah explains. She started having anxiety attacks, couldn't sleep, her grades dropped. She convinced herself that if she was a better daughter, Daddy would come home. Jake, 16, handled it differently. He got angry and took sides. Jake decided his dad was the villain and I was the victim. He refused to visit Tom, wouldn't take his calls, started acting like he was the man of the house. He was trying to protect me, but he was destroying his relationship with his father. Sarah found herself managing not just her own emotional devastation, but her children's trauma. I was falling apart inside, but I had to hold it together for them. They needed stability when their whole world was collapsing. The practical challenges hit immediately. Tom moved out, but the mortgage, utilities, and household expenses remained. Sarah, who hadn't worked in 16 years, suddenly needed to support herself and contribute to her children's expenses. I had to tell my kids we might lose the house, that I needed to find a job, that everything was going to change. I felt like I was failing them twice. First by not keeping their father, then by not being able to maintain their lifestyle. That's when Sarah called me. When Sarah called me, I heard something familiar in her voice, the shock of someone whose entire identity had been built around a role that no longer existed. Sarah, I told her. You're not just dealing with divorce. You're dealing with the death of the person you thought you were. For 20 years, you've been Tom's wife first, a mother second, and Sarah last. Now you have to learn to be Sarah first. I shared with her something I learned from my own relationship struggles. You can't build a healthy marriage on top of an invisible person. If you don't know who you are, your partner is just loving a role, not a person. But I also understood her immediate practical concerns. Right now, you're scared about money, worried about your kids, and overwhelmed by decisions you never had to make alone. But here's what I need you to understand. This crisis is also an opportunity to discover strengths you never knew you had. I told Sarah about the difference between reacting to divorce and responding to it. Reacting means letting the divorce happen to you. Responding means taking control of what happens after the divorce. Over the next 2 months, Sarah and I worked together on what I call intentional rebuilding, creating a new life that serves your authentic self, not just your survival needs. First, we addressed the immediate crisis. Sarah needed income, and the kids needed stability. You can't rebuild your identity while you're drowning financially. We need to secure your foundation before we can build your future. Sarah enrolled in online marketing courses to update her skills while taking a part-time retail job for immediate income. It wasn't glamorous, but it was progress. Second, we worked on helping her children process the divorce without taking responsibility for their father's choices. Your kids don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be honest about the situation while protecting them from adult details they can't handle. Sarah started family counseling with Jake and Emma, learning to validate their feelings without absorbing their pain as her own responsibility. Third, we focused on Sarah rediscovering her individual identity. You spent 20 years being who you thought your family needed you to be. Now you get to discover who you actually are. 6 months after Tom's divorce announcement, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She decided to go back to school to finish her master's degree in digital marketing. People thought I was crazy, Sarah says. Single mom, working part-time, dealing with divorce, and I'm adding school to my plate. But I realized that if I was going to rebuild my life, I wanted to build something I was excited about, not just something that paid the bills. The breakthrough came when Emma told her mother, "Mom, I like you better now. Before, you were always worried about making everyone else happy. Now you seem like you have your own dreams." Sarah realized that her children didn't need a perfect mother. They needed a whole person as a role model. Within a year, Sarah had completed her master's degree, landed a digital marketing position with flexible hours, moved to a smaller house that she could afford independently, established new routines and traditions with Jake and Emma, started dating again, but on her own terms. The kids adjusted better than Sarah expected. Jake reconciled with his father when he saw that his mother was thriving, not just surviving. Emma stopped blaming herself when she saw that divorce could lead to growth, not just loss. What Sarah taught me through her divorce journey is that sometimes life's biggest disruptions are invitations to become who you were always meant to be. Here's what every person facing unexpected major life changes needs to know. First, when your identity is built entirely around roles, spouse, parent, employee, any change in those roles creates an identity crisis. The solution isn't to find new roles. It's to discover who you are beyond any role. Second, financial independence isn't just about money. It's about options. When you can support yourself, you make relationship choices from desire, not desperation. Third, your children don't need you to have a perfect marriage. They need you to model how to handle life's challenges with grace and strength. Sometimes divorce teaches better life lessons than staying in an unfulfilling marriage. Fourth, rebuilding your life isn't about returning to who you were before. It's about becoming who you're capable of being now with all the wisdom you've gained. Fifth, the skills you developed as a spouse and parent, organization, multitasking, problem solving, emotional management are valuable professional assets. Don't underestimate what you bring to the world. Sixth, dating after long-term marriage requires rediscovering what you actually want in a partner, not what you think you should want. Take time to know yourself before trying to know someone else. If you're facing an unexpected major life change right now, divorce, job loss, health crisis, empty nest, remember what Sarah learned. Your crisis might be your invitation to finally become your authentic self. You're not starting over, you're starting fresh. There's a difference. Starting over implies returning to where you were. Starting fresh means taking everything you've learned and building something better. Sarah isn't the same person who got blindsided by divorce papers. She's stronger, more independent, clearer about her values, and excited about her future in ways she never was in her marriage. Her kids don't have the nuclear family they started with, but they have something else. A mother who shows them that life changes don't have to mean life ends. They can mean life begins. That's not just surviving divorce, that's transforming through adversity. Remember this, when life forces you to rebuild, you get to choose what you build. You're not a victim of your circumstances. You're the architect of your response to them. Sarah's story proves that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best version of yourself. Y'all remember that. Your unexpected endings might just be your unplanned beginnings.